Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at purposely.com.
Welcome to the bonfire. It's always good to be together, to draw near to God, to dive deep into Scripture. And in this season, we've been going through the Psalms. Now, one scripture that's been on my heart, and it's actually on my sweatshirt today, Isaiah 40:31. Those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. What does that mean? We decide where we put our hope. When you put your hope in Jesus, you're going to have renewed strength. Even in our weakness, God is powerful. We're going to soar together. And as we soar like eagles, it's not going to be flapping our wings. It's going to be the power of the Holy Spirit. It's going to be through abiding with Jesus, and we're going to bear much fruit. As we're going through the Psalms, I think that's a beautiful picture. These eagles that are soaring, sometimes attacked by crows, trying to steal their food and peck, but they rise above, they ascend to altitudes where crows won't go. What does it look like for you to spiritually soar? In the Psalms, there's a journey with soaring, and there's a lot of raw prayers, vulnerability, honesty. There's a lot of processing life, seeking God, and that's what we have today in Psalm 73. I encourage you to really go through this psalm in depth during our time together today, and then take some additional time, because this is a psalm that goes right to the heart. Sometimes our hearts are not aligned with God. They drift, they wander, we get confused, and we start to imitate the world. This shows up in envy, it shows up in jealousy, and there are times when we begin to stumble in our faith. That's what's happening in Psalm 73. If you've been wrestling lately with envy, this is a psalm for you. If you've been wrestling with a lack of contentment, this is a psalm for you. If you feel like there's things you want and you don't have, this is a psalm for you. How do you talk with God and walk through those longings that are unfulfilled, what you see in the world in terms of injustice, and yet come back to God and trust Him? Now, the psalm begins with verse 1. Surely God is good to Israel, to those who are pure in heart. It's noble to be pure in heart. It's not easy to be pure in heart. Our culture is dark. There's a lot of drifting. There's a lot of temptation. If you pick up your phone, like most people do, and it's hours every day, that phone can be a gateway to poison. That phone can be a gateway to looking at things you shouldn't look at, and your heart can start to go astray. To keep your heart pure is not easy. In Psalm 119, how can a young man keep his way pure, or a young woman keep her way pure? By living according to your word. I seek you with all my heart. Don't let me stray from your commands. I have hidden your word in my heart that I may not sin against you. We've got to be intentional when it comes to purity. We need a purity revolution. There are so many who say they love God, but their lives are not pure. Their motives are not pure. Their eyes are not pure. Their words are not pure. Their actions are not pure. Purity honors the Lord. And what does it look like to stay pure in this culture? Well, as you make that decision, you might feel like you're missing out on some things because the world is diving headfirst into sin. And you might look over and think, wait a second, how can they choose sin and have these other blessings in their lives, but I'm staying pure and I don't have those things? Well, this psalmist is going to now open up his thoughts and open up his soul with us. After declaring that, God is good, purity is good, choosing purity is wise, now we have in verse 2, the confession begins, as for me, my feet had almost slipped. I nearly lost my foothold, for I envied the arrogant when I saw the prosperity of the wicked. Taking a glance around his community, he sees that there are those who are not pure, and yet they appear to have many blessings. They appear to have finances. They appear to have health. They appear to have many things, and he's looking at that, and it just doesn't add up. Do you have moments like that where you look around and you think, how can someone have those blessings when they don't have the lifestyle that honors God? And that's a deep wrestling. He writes, they have no struggles. Their bodies are healthy and strong. They are free from the burdens common to man. They are not plagued by human ills. Therefore, pride is their necklace. They clothe themselves with violence. From their callous hearts comes iniquity. The evil conceits of their minds knows no limits. They scoff and speak with malice. In their arrogance, they threaten oppression. Here's the injustice. The psalmist says they have healthy bodies, bodies that are strong, and they don't have some of the same burdens that the rest of us are carrying. Yet, look at their minds. There's pride, arrogance, their words, their actions, they're conceited. All these blessings have gone to their head. They've stopped thanking God. They don't acknowledge God. They don't walk humbly with God. Yet, look at that, healthy bodies. And the psalmist is thinking, myself and some others are over here walking pure, but our bodies are not healthy. We are not enjoying the same blessings that they are. There's a discrepancy that leads to dissonance. See, in the Old Testament, there was a theological view that if you don't sin, you're going to have all these blessings. And if you don't have all the blessings, it's because of you sinned. And that's simply not how life plays out in our time this side of heaven. Now, it sounds kind of theologically tight, and yes, it is true. Obedience does lead to blessings. And it's also true that you reap what you sow, and if you dishonor God and you sin, you're going to inherit. You might inherit a lot more than what you ever thought because the cost of sin is high. So those are true principles, but it doesn't lead to this final conclusion that if you're pure, you're going to be blessed immensely, and if you are not pure, there's going to be all these curses evident in your life. The truth is, someone can receive a lot of blessings from God and never thank God. There's a lot of people, as you look around the world today, who are doing well in their career, who have a nice home, who are married, who have kids and grandkids, and they are enjoying, they might have a boat, they have season tickets. I mean, they have all these things that the world longs for, and yet they haven't thanked God once. They don't even believe God exists. They're mean to people at work. It's like, how can they have a 7-figure income and be so mean to people? How can they be so selfish? How can they take advantage of people? Money is their God. Like, trying to add all of this up, and then for someone who's honoring God, walking humble, walking pure, and looking around and saying, boy, my house isn't as nice as theirs. My car's not as nice as theirs. I don't have a boat. Like, I can barely get to one game. I'm struggling to pay for cable TV, and they have 7 TVs in their home, and they have 700 channels. Like, doing this comparison and just thinking over, like, wait a second, like, all these years I've been serving God and being pure and honoring the Lord and looking at the Word and being a doer of the Word, all those years, and this is what I have. And then looking over at those who reject God and thinking, wait a second, they show no respect to God, and look at everything they have. And the psalmist begins to feel like there's a terrible injustice here. And he's not happy trying to process through this and come to grips with some of these realities. He continues, their mouths lay claim to heaven, and their tongues take possession of the earth. Therefore, their people turn to them and drink up waters in abundance. They say, how can God know? Does the Most High have knowledge? This is what the wicked are like. Always carefree, they increase in wealth. We have people who are living lives of rebellion, yet they continue to gain more and more money. They're working the stock market. They've got their real estate investment. Everything they do in terms of business, it seems to work out well for them. They just continue to gain more and more and amass more and more wealth, which leads to more and more possessions. Also, they appear to live carefree. Like, here we have, a group of people following God, and they are putting too much pressure on themselves. They're wrestling with guilt. They're wrestling with shame. They feel discouraged and defeated. And then you have people over here who have no regard for God, and they're just living carefree. They just look like, wow, look at that freedom. They get to do whatever they want to do. These are all the visuals that don't add up. And even on the side of the unrighteous, they're like, how can God know? Does the Most High have knowledge? They are so lofty, they've just completely lost their view of who God is and how much they need God. And instead of thanking God, they continue to pat themselves on the back, thinking, well, it's because of my savvy, it's because of my experience, my intellect, It's because I know the best practices. And now they don't even think they need God. And because they're over there, independent, all wealthy, and have all the materialism, and yet looking over on the other side and thinking, yes, we have God, but here's a whole bunch of stuff we don't have. Weighing all this in the scales, that's where the psalmist says, I almost slipped. Don't you appreciate it when someone's honest? Sometimes I feel like you can be walking with someone, let's just say in a church, for 5-10 years and never know how their life really is. Never know what they're really thinking. Never really know some of their struggles, and they're never really that honest. They're very guarded. I'll tell you, in churches sometimes people know how to work it. They know what to say. They know when to say it, how to say it. They know how to present. They know image maintenance. And underneath that, there can be a whole story of what's going on, but it's never going to come forth. They don't talk to God about it. They don't talk to others about it. And as a result, they're living inside with a lot of envy, with some bitterness, some resentment. They're living with jealousy. And instead of putting it out on the table, instead of bringing it before the Lord, instead of bringing it into the light, there's a harboring, there is a darkness to it, and a soul is not healthy. But yes, on the exterior, you can make it look good. That's what the Pharisees did, in essence. They had whitewashed tombs, and on the inside, dead man's bones. They cleaned the outside of the cup, and on the inside, no, it was filthy in there. Well, it's easy to, again, present very spiritually strong when on the inside, things aren't right. And here, the psalmist comes clean. It's refreshing, isn't it, when someone comes clean? You've had points in your life, I've had points in my life where it feels like, okay, Lord, as best as I can tell, I'm being faithful over here, and I haven't seen the blessing. And then I look over, and there's someone else that, they're kind of 1 foot in the world, 1 foot in the Word, and yet you blessed them with all these things. And you can choose your area where you're most sensitive towards jealousy and envy. It could be financial. That's one thing that's talked about here. It could be just the attitude. That could be another one. It could be blessing. I remember when I was longing to be married, and then I was literally just marrying people all the time, but I wasn't married. And I'm just thinking, I'm serving them, and I tried to enter in joyfully, but my heart would still wrestle. Like, God, is there one for me at some point? And all of us have those areas where we look around at other people, and it's easy to take our eyes off Jesus, put him on the blessings, the people, the things, and then as a result, we start to slow down. We start to think, well, is it really worth being pure? Can I really trust God? Is God really in control? Does God have the final say? Is there any justice down here? Is it all random? Does the devil just run and steal, kill, and destroy? And when does God show up and make it right? And you start to feel that inside, and it grows. There was a point in Peter's life where he looked over at John. We have the 12, and of these disciples, 11 are going to be killed for the faith. There's only one that won't be a martyr, and that's John. And John wrote the book of Revelation, the final book in the Bible. He wrote 5 books in the Bible, the Gospel of John, 1st, 2nd, 3rd John, and Revelation. And John didn't have it easy necessarily, but he also wasn't killed for the faith. And Peter at one point is looking over at John, because Peter and John kind of have a competitive thing going. I mean, when it came to running to the empty tomb, it was like, who's going to run there faster? Who's faster? Who's quicker? Who gets there first? Who does Jesus love more? Like, they were just vying frequently. Peter, James, and John were the 3 that were the most in terms of time with Jesus, Transfiguration Mount. I mean, they had it's like backstage pass. They had the VIP pass. Jesus brought those 3 in. And in bringing those 3 in, one of the risks is that, okay, now there could be some competition. There could be some comparison. If you are someone who likes sports and is competitive, you're probably noticing who has what, how much, when, what's their lifestyle. You're gauging things a lot. Sometimes it can work out well to have a little bit of comparison or awareness. Like if you have a mentor that's training you, and you're looking at that mentor and they're spending all this time in the word and you're just like skipping over the word, that could be a little bit of a beneficial piece to comparison, because you might see that and think, you know what? I want to grow in the word. I don't have to exactly do it like they do it, but that kind of inspires me. So there is a comparison. There's a mentoring, maybe that's a better word, where you get a glimpse of what can be spiritually and you want more of that and you move forward. So that's positive. But there's a whole lot of comparison that's completely negative. And comparison, when you go down that road, can steal your contentment. Envy will steal your contentment. Jealousy will steal your contentment. Now, Peter, when Jesus says, follow me, and this is reinstatement, Peter's denied Jesus 3 times, now follow me. Peter lifts up his eyes and looks over at John and is like, well, what about him? And a lot of times we do that. Well, Jesus, I know you called me to follow you, but what about these other people? And we start thinking in their shoes and what they have and don't have and what their life's going to look like and what their future is going to be. And listen, we're not responsible for other people. We're responsible to run our race. In essence, that's what Jesus says. Like, Peter, that's not yours. John over here, if he doesn't die, then that's my prerogative. That's my decision. And you, Peter, run the race that I've called you to run. And that's a message in this psalm too, I think is, and we're going to see the transformation, but at this point here, there's just this sense of injustice that's really eating his lunch. Now, this is what he says, surely in vain I have kept my heart pure. In vain have I washed my hands in innocence. All day long I have been plagued. I have been punished every morning. If I had said, I will speak thus, I would have betrayed your children. When I tried to understand all this, it was oppressive to me. Now, here's the feeling. Maybe I've done it in vain. Maybe it wasn't worth it to sacrifice the money, to give up, some of the fame I could have had, to not have as much appreciation, to not have certain things, certain sinful pleasures. Maybe it wasn't worth it. Maybe I should have dabbled more. Maybe I should have indulged more. Maybe I should have taken what the world offered. Like, it just hasn't played out. And all day long, he's feeling it. And he says, it was oppressive to me. And the more I thought about these realities, that someone could be impure and yet have money, job, house, career, family, like all these things, and then I could be pure and have none of those things. Okay, what do you do with that? And he says, the more I compared and envied, it was like the worst things got inside. So there must be another option. And he says, until I entered the sanctuary of God, then I understood their final destiny. Well, what did he decide to do? He decided to seek God, and he decided to get a long-term view. Now, surely you place them on slippery ground, you cast them down to ruin. How suddenly are they destroyed, completely swept away by terrors. As a dream when one awakes, so when you arise, O Lord, you will despise them as fantasies. And that's one reality, is that, okay, although sin looks pleasurable for a moment, the price tag's very high. Although things look great on the outside, the inside story is not flourishing. I mean, how many people do you know that might have a yacht, a mansion, 4 nice cars, a great massive bank account, including retirement, and yet on the inside they feel empty and lonely? And they're going to have to come before their maker. They're going to be accountable to God. And what's going to happen on that day? You suddenly start to envy a lot less for people who are rebellious and appear to have it all going for them and have the immediate pleasures that they want and appear to be carefree and are just living for the moment, carpe diem. It's all about right now and feeling good. And then when you get the long-term view and realize they're going to come before God, they're going to be held accountable, God's going to have a final say, you suddenly become a lot less envious. You suddenly become, you know what? I wouldn't trade a minute in those shoes. I don't care if you gave me all the pleasures, all the possessions, all the highest positions right now with the greatest pay. I wouldn't trade a minute in those shoes than to walk with God. Not a minute. I would rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my God than have 1,000 years doing what you guys are doing. And suddenly there's a paradigm shift. There's a realization. When my heart was grieved and my spirit embittered, I was senseless and ignorant. I was a brute beast before you. So here's the second realization. The first one is that those who are rebellious and those who live a life of injustice and impurity, in the long run, they don't win. And in fact, pray for them. Pray for them that they would change, because everyone is looking at them. I mean, think of the most popular people. Oftentimes it's, let's say, Hollywood or entertainers, athletes. Think about how many of them have fame, money, adoration. They have sponsors. You name it, they have it. And yet, they're not winning. They're really not winning. So you can have everything that the world defines as winning and not be winning. And that's the first realization. Here's the second one, is that for the psalmist, his heart was off. He said, I was like a brute beast. I was senseless. I was ignorant. What was I thinking? What was I thinking being envious? What was I thinking being jealous? What was I thinking being ungrateful? There are people that have so much and are ungrateful. You know, in America, to have a Bible, do you know how many people would love their own Bible? In America, to have freedom to worship. Do you know how many brothers and sisters would love to have freedom to worship? To be able to go into a church building where the music and, the seat is comfortable, and to have a building and a campus and a place you can park, to have a car, to have clean water. There's followers of Jesus who have a hot shower every day and never thank God. And then there's followers of Jesus who are just begging and crying out and pleading to God that they could find any clean water that day. And for every drop, they are thanking God. They're thanking God for murky water. You see, there are those who are really grateful and don't have much. And then there's those that have so much and they're not so grateful. And he realizes, what's going on with my heart? Like, I've lost my gratitude. I started to get entitled. It started to big head. Instead of thanking you, God, and praising you, God, I just became consumed with what I don't have. God, my heart was off. It was not right before you. You've been so good. You've been faithful. You've been a protector. You've been a provider. You've blessed me so much, God. And so there's this confession. And now here's a celebration of what the psalmist has. Yet I am always with you. You hold me by my right hand. You guide me with your counsel, and afterward you will take me into glory. Here's now a celebration. God is always with us. God cares. God still holds us. Nothing can separate us from his love. God guides us with wisdom. Every time when we're making a decision, we ask for wisdom. James 1:5, he's generous. Jesus is a good shepherd. And after this journey with God on earth, we are going to step into glory. We are being transformed from glory to glory. We are going to spend an eternity in the presence of God. Heaven is real. Jesus prepares a place for us. This sickness in our body, it's only going to last a few years. These are earthly tents. We're going to have resurrected bodies. We're finally going to see Jesus face to face. There's going to be no more devil, no more demons, no more sin. Like the glory that's coming. I just lost sight of that. And instead, I made everything about right now in what I don't have. Here's the question. Whom have I in heaven but you? In earth has nothing I desire besides you. Now, what does that mean? No more desires? That's not what it means. We have desires. You wake up, you have desires for a drink of water, desires for food. You have desires for love. You have desires for God's kingdom and how you're serving. It's not that we have no desires, but now our desires are lined up with God, and we realize some of these earthly longings compared to God, compared to the desire for his presence. Now these desires are going in their right place, and the ones that shouldn't be there are starting to disappear, to dissipate. These are drifting away, and they're fading. That's what happens when you draw near to God. When you draw near to God, your perspective changes and you start to see things how God sees things. And you start to become grateful. And there become shifts in your heart and shifts in your mind. And now he's realizing that these desires, my flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. He's declaring, God, you are my strength. When you're going down the road of envy and jealousy, you are losing strength. God will strengthen you when you put your hope in God. When your hope is in God, see, your hope is only as strong as the one in whom you put it in. And when you put your hope in what you don't have and can't have or won't have, your hope is going to be weak. When you put your hope in just your own effort, your hope is going to be weak. But when you put your hope in God, now God's going to renew, God's going to refuel, and you're going to be operating, you're going to go from strength to strength to strength. You walk through the valleys, you're going to be the light in the darkness. You walk through the desert, you're going to have refreshing springs because Jesus is providing. He's walking with you. And there's a conclusion here. Those who are far from you will perish. You destroy all who are unfaithful to you. But as for me, and this is where he lands at the end, as for me, it is good to be near God. I have made the sovereign Lord my refuge. I will tell of all your deeds. See, the truth is, on our time in this earth, there's always going to be a nicer phone. There's always going to be nicer shoes. There's always going to be a nicer TV. There's always going to be, a better job out there somewhere. There's always going to be a little more money. There's always going to be a better stock to invest in. There's always going to be something better, something better, something better. That's just a reality. And instead of focusing on those things, instead of being consumed with those things, what the psalmist finally lands on, as for me, it's just so good to be near God. Notice the shift here. As we recap, this is Psalm 73, starting out choosing purity and honoring the Lord. Purity is good. Then looking around and thinking, well, there's all these other people that don't honor God, and yet look at all these materialistic, look at all these different blessings they have. And the psalmist almost stumbled. And then three things kicked in. First, recognizing that those who rebel will face their maker. And even though it looks like they're winning, they're not winning. A shift in perspective. Then second, a shift in attitude, a shift of the heart. And instead of pride and entitlement, gratitude and humility. And then the last one, a choice of the true treasure, which is Jesus. The true treasure, which is abiding with God. The true treasure, which is being near to God. Today, if you're wrestling with envy or jealousy, just remember that you only see part of the picture. Walk with God with a grateful heart. And remember, you'll never be more content and never have more peace or joy than you will when you're close to God. Close to God. That's our target every day. And because this psalmist lands there, this psalmist has a testimony of contentment. This world is searching for contentment. Everyone's filling up the outside, filling up the materialism. But who really has contentment? The one who draws near to God. So share your story honestly about where you're at. Spend time with God. Work through, wrestle through some of these things, but make sure you land in the right place. And where you put your eyes, your mind, and your heart is very significant. You make that decision, and you'll never regret abiding with Jesus and being close to him. He is our source, our song, and our strength. That's why we have the bonfire. Now, if you've enjoyed this time together, encourage someone to read Psalm 73. Share this episode as well. Let's keep growing in our faith. God is love, God is light, and God is a consuming fire.